Welcome back, MMA fans, boxing fans, combat sports fans, to DAZN MMA. Sean O'Connell and the outlaw Dan Hardy. Happy to be speaking with you once again. It is a great time to be jumping into the sport as a new fan. It's also a great time if you've been around a renaissance, a resurgence of some of the greats in mixed martial arts, plus the rise of the PFL, plus the rise of great talent in other worldwide organizations. It's just a good time. It's a really wonderful time in our sport. And coinciding with that is the return of the most popular, the most controversial, the most interesting fighter that most people have ever seen. Conor McGregor is circling back into orbit, Dan Hardy, coaching tough against Michael Chandler, an eventual matchup between those two individuals on the horizon. Your broad thoughts first.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see Conor back. He always brings an intensity to the sport of mixed martial arts that is very, very seldom recreated. And if it is, it's only for one fight, and it's because of both opponents. Conor can step in there against anybody, and he brings that kind of fanfare. And of course, we've got the Ultimate Fighter that he's coaching on against Michael Chandler, which it adds to the tension between the two of them. Michael Chandler, a fantastic former champion, very, very quick, strong wrestler. I think it's a really, really fun matchup between two guys that are probably not got the lightweight gold in their eyes just at the moment, but certainly a big win in the top five. Good to see Conor back. Good to see Michael Chandler get such a big opportunity.
You bring up the fact that maybe neither of these guys are looking at a title shot right this second. Michael Chandler's a lot more prepared skill wise to take on Islam Makhachev than Conor McGregor is, right? We've seen that fight before, effectively. Conor McGregor versus Khabib. I don't think it goes much differently. So if you're the most popular fighter ever, the biggest pay-per-view seller ever, what kind of opponent are you looking for? You're looking for what Michael Chandler has delivered since coming over to the UFC, right? You're looking for a guy that's willing to stand and trade, even when you're probably better served by using your incredible wrestling prowess. You're looking for a guy that will cut a promo on a mic after every one of his wins and even some of his losses. Michael Chandler checks that box as well. You're looking for a guy that is, good looking, charismatic, and can be opposite your equal, opposite you on a season coaching on the Ultimate Fighter, right? Michael Chandler's the perfect opponent for Conor McGregor because I think he can and probably even should beat Conor. But the question of whether he will comes down to, what are you looking for in this fight, Michael Chandler? Are you trying to give people a reason to buy the pay-per-view, and then are you trying to give people a reason to buy the rematch also? Or are you trying to go out there and just dominate a guy and put him in his place because you are one of the better wrestlers that we've seen in that division, at least American wrestlers we've seen in that division? I'm curious what Michael Chandler's thought process is, genuinely, because most fighters, it's just like, let me get the win at all costs. I don't think the calculus is the same when you're talking about the money, the pay-per-view sales, the popularity, the opportunities that come with fighting Conor McGregor.
I feel like we've seen two different versions of Michael Chandler. And unfortunately, by the time he arrived in the UFC, he was it almost felt like he was cashing in on his ability to have big, exciting fights. Like you go back to when he fought Sidney Outlaw or Pitbull, the speed off the mark with his single punch power, as well as, of course, the threat of him level changing underneath, would be a real problem for Conor to deal with. But I feel like this version of Michael Chandler that we've got is far more adamant to just have wild fights. And I don't know if that's the smart way to go with McGregor, because you're not going to get a wild fight out of McGregor until he gets tired, right? You're going to have to work hard for 10 minutes to make him tired before he starts to look sloppy, because he's never going to choose to be reckless. Whereas Chandler's been choosing to be reckless in some of his recent fights. Now, if he comes in like a sharpshooter with that, that fast level change in his back pocket to scare Conor McGregor, then absolutely he's got the ability to beat him. And as you say, he probably should. But with the intensity, with the rivalry with Conor McGregor, which is developing over this season of The Ultimate Fighter, walking out into an arena which is there ready for Conor McGregor to arrive, that's a different thing as well. And most likely Michael Chandler's going to walk out second, right? Because he's still ranked. So then you've got McGregor walking out first, already in the octagon by the time Michael Chandler's making his walk. Like, the crowd are going to be ferocious. It's going to be really, really difficult for him to keep control of his emotions and not just want to get stuck in and get wild. if he can learn anything, he can learn from Dustin Poirier. And although Poirier had to beat Conor McGregor twice, it made him a superstar and it made him a lot of money. And I think if Chandler can hold it together for, 10 minutes or less, he should be able to beat McGregor. But it's a big but, because I don't know as he can.
Well, the other thing here to talk about is, what version of Conor McGregor are you getting? Long layoff, right? Needs to get back in the testing pool, so to speak. His body is very different than we've ever seen it before. Conor McGregor was just at UFC 285, offering coaching from the front row. It looks fully invested, shaved the beard, all that stuff. But he's part of a Roadhouse remake. This he's gone Hollywood, right? And in the world of mixed martial arts, that usually doesn't precede stronger performances inside of the octagon. Doesn't usually precede you getting better at the craft, right? When you have the financial opportunities, the fame opportunities that Conor McGregor has, I totally understand why that would distract you from the focus on getting back in and fighting and honing your craft to the level that honestly, Michael Chandler does not have an excuse not to be working toward that and that alone, right? Conor McGregor does. Conor McGregor is a multinational businessman. He's now a Hollywood star. He's got all these things going on that, quite frankly, pay him as much or more than his fight career does. So, he's almost justified in using time that could be spent in training to do other things. That's the question for me. Conor McGregor, every time he's circled back in, has looked good, but he hasn't looked better than the best version of Conor McGregor. Does he have to look like the best version of himself to beat Michael Chandler? I think the answer to that is still yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. I wonder if him coaching on The Ultimate Fighter will kind of tune him back into the process of preparing. I feel like being around young fighters that are fighting for their place on the UFC roster might bring something out of him. It might remind him what it was like to be back in the trenches where he was at his best. But then, there are so many opportunities around him. It's difficult to turn things down, like exciting opportunities like movies and video games and, all the travel opportunities he's got. He can go anywhere in the world and be welcomed. People always say don't put all your eggs in one basket, but he's got too many baskets and not enough eggs in his one MMA basket. And I feel like Michael Chandler's got one big basket full of MMA eggs, and I think it's going to work out pretty well for him if he's able to keep his cool. But again, it's all about maintaining his emotional side. And this is what Conor McGregor's been so good at leaning on. Even in times when he's not seemed as focused as he should be, he always seemed to be able to control the chaos better than his opponents. Like nobody was able to get under Aldo's skin like McGregor. And no one was able to get Aldo to run onto a punch the way that McGregor did. And that was very uncharacteristic of Aldo. That wouldn't be uncharacteristic of Michael Chandler. And that's where I'm concerned about him, because I don't feel like it's a technical or a physical thing. I feel like it's an emotional thing. And if he can keep that in check, he can beat McGregor. But if not, he's going to find that left hand on his chin.
I don't know why I feel like it's important to say this, but I do think it's important to say that Conor McGregor's distractions and his other opportunities are used against him, right, in conversations like this. But they shouldn't be, because what Conor McGregor has done is he's become a crossover star. He's become a mainstream celebrity. He's achieved goals that are like outside the realm of possibility for even some of the best mixed martial artists in the world. He has accomplished things that very few other people in our sport, well, really no one else in our sport, very few people in other sports even have been able to accomplish. So he deserves admiration for that. And it's quite courageous, actually, for him, after he is financially set for the rest of his life and the rest of his children's and grandchildren's and great-grandchildren's life. It's actually quite courageous to say, you know what, I think I will jump back in with some of the most dangerous fighters on the planet, just because it speaks to him or just because it's a challenge that keeps him going. Whatever it is, I don't know. But it fascinates me, because if it were me, Dan Hardy, and I sold my share in Proper Number 12 for $300 million or whatever ungodly sum he took home from that, you would never see me again. I love doing DAZN MMA with you, Dan Hardy, but I'm off to the Seychelles. Okay, I'm buying an island. Like, no one would ever hear from me again, and I certainly would not be putting myself in harm's way in front of Michael Chandler's hands. So this guy is one of the most fascinating. He's as fascinating now, more so even, than he was when he was just a fighter on the rise, because he doesn't have to do it anymore. When he was coming out of Crumlin, he did have to do it. Not now.
Exactly that. And that's partly what makes me so excited, is that he doesn't have to be there. He's choosing to be. So he feels like there's something left undone, which is quite impressive considering he's already won a belt in 2 weight classes. You know, it's like it's almost like he's being greedy coming back and stealing the limelight from these young fighters. But it shows that he's still got the desire to compete. The motivation to compete is different, though. Was it John Danaher that said it's difficult to wake up on silk sheets and go to the gym? I would imagine it is. It doesn't mean that you won't want to, but it might not feel like he might not be putting the same kind of effort in that he was when he was coming out of Crumlin. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. He's an anomaly, right? As you said, he's done things that nobody else has done. Like when he fought Brandao in Dublin, it was one of the most intense experiences of my career as a commentator. It was unbelievable, the atmosphere that he was able to create. It was so overwhelming that Brandao just fell apart in the first round. And that is a formidable force to put yourself up against, even as Michael Chandler is a former champion.
I mean, this guy, like everyone in the sport at some level has gotten to, get a little sunburn off of the brightness that is Conor McGregor, myself included. The most intense atmosphere that I ever fought in my career, I happened to be on the undercard of his fight against Dennis Sieber in Boston, right? This is pre him being a champion, but they did it on purpose. They put him in Boston, where there's a bunch of Irish Americans, where it's an easy flight from Dublin, and there were 8,000 Irish fans. And I just happened to have an Irish name and got lucky that they all decided in their drunken stupor that I was the guy they wanted to root for. A crowd has never been louder for me, than the group that showed up to watch Conor McGregor, right? Like that's the effect that he has on mixed martial arts. All the good, all the bad, all the whatever that comes with Conor McGregor, it is totally unique. It's something that you and I have talked about John Jones and his greatest of all time status. It's something that John Jones will never achieve. Like he will go down, I think, as the face, the first head on the Mount Rushmore of mixed martial arts. But he'll never be Conor McGregor. He will never have that effect. He'll never have that popularity. He'll never have that atmosphere. He'll never sell as many pay-per-view buys. And it's not because Conor's a better fighter.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, it's unquantifiable, which is why it's fascinating. But it is that gold touch. It's that Midas touch. And as you said, once you've been on the card with him, or I've sat octagon side and commentated for him, it's a different experience to anything else. Now, I didn't quite get the same kind of memory from a Conor McGregor event that you, but I have got a jacket, a really nice jacket that I only wore once because it got absolutely drenched in Guinness when he beat Brandao. I wore it one time. I've never had it dry cleaned. It is the perfect advert for stout. It's a beautiful jacket. It smells delicious.
That's amazing. I want you to bust that out. For when I see you at a PFL event, I want you wearing that jacket.
You won't want to come near me.